Hey guys, this is Mudassar from PhoneYear. Today's video is all about the camera review of Vivo V20 SE. The device is the lighter version of V20 series. The triple camera setup on the rear side has a 48 megapixel lens, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle lens that also helps with the super macro shot, and a 2 megapixel bokeh sensor. The default camera app on the phone is pretty straightforward and quite similar to the usual layout we find on other Vivo phones. The standard mode gives you a single toggle key for 2x zoom that can go as high as 10x. The lenses can be switched from here to choose from super wide angle, bokeh and super macro modes. The 48 megapixel button finds its place here where it is usually locked in other versions of the Vivo phones, where also you can find Pro mode, slow motion and rest of the modes. You need to make sure that AI scene identification toggle key inside the setting area is active, as this will activate the AI algorithm to recognize most of the scenes for better photography. The HDR mode is active by default and I would recommend keeping it that way for most of the situations. And why I am saying that? Check out this image. The HDR image is on the right side and without HDR it is on the left. The right one shows a better dynamic range and looks better in details. Check out some other areas. The wide-angle image turns out more colorful than its standard variant, but the image detail and resolutions are almost 50% lesser than what we are getting on the standard mode. Let's have a look at another situation when the lens is somehow facing the sun. Here also you will find HDR mode a better performer than the non-HDR version. You can see the one without the HDR is just an ordinary looking image with very low dynamic range, and everything is just looking darker because the sun is right above the building, and the lens is having a sort of difficulty. But when I turn on the HDR, it fixes the darker areas and now the washed out areas are looking clearer. This is just a comparison of two modes on Vivo V20 SE. Let's compare this image with the one of Oppo F17 Pros. Actually, F17 Pro has a similar 48 megapixel sensor on the rear side. Take a look at the image of both. Both of them have HDR active, but the F17 Pro's image is looking brighter. Let's take a closer look at 100% zoom and see what's the apparent difference. The blacks on F17 Pro looks better and similarly whites are also brighter. But the bright spots are not extremely bright and they don't blow out. V20 SE provides bokeh feature in both portrait and photo mode. You can control the intensity of bokeh through a slider. If the subject size is too out of proportion or the distance is not right from the subject, the bokeh sometimes create an inaccurate subject mapping, causing an inconsistent blur. But that is not a major issue for most of the scenarios. For me, it sometimes happened when I was taking images of plants and trees. The super macro mode takes help from 8MP super wide angle sensor. In good light, you can take some nice shots with firm hands, but you really need to take too many pictures sometimes for taking one right shot. The 48 megapixel is the primary selling feature on the Vivo V20 SE, but as a usual practice on most of the phones, the 48 megapixel image is less sharper than 12 megapixel shot. The front camera is a 32 megapixel sensor, and unlike the Vivo V20, the special edition offers only single lens. I have found 32 megapixel performing better in terms of dynamic range than the rear camera setup. The selfies in the day and the low lit areas turn out very reasonable. At night, the night mode on the front camera also works great with and without the screen flash, which is also Vivo's another selling feature. But on the contrary, the night performance from the rear camera isn't as impressive as it is on the front camera. Images under good light are captured nicely, but the rear camera doesn't always handle the light source well and you may find lens glare problem even with the night mode on. Despite being the lighter version, the special edition can shoot 4K videos from the rear cameras that when you crop further can still give a reasonable quality of the video. The video quality turns out to be good, however the colors don't look very poppy. Instead, they look closer to natural colors. You can also turn on and off the flashlight during the video. Other than the 4K resolution, the rear camera setup also allows 1080p and 720p resolutions. Unfortunately, the 1080p does not give you an option to use the beauty mode, which is available on 720p resolution only. And similarly, there is no bokeh mode available on the lighter version. However, you can choose between 30 fps and 60 fps in the 1080p mode. Let's check out a few video sample in different lighting conditions. So guys, this is the quick shot from the rear camera in the same situation where I was shooting the front camera, and this is 4K video and you can see the result. I'm also going to shoot the 1080p right now here from the rear camera, so you could also see the difference between 4K and 1080p. It's evening here and you can see the kind of result this camera can give me. I'm using this 1080p resolution right now, and the front camera of V20 SE allows me to do the 2x zoom as well, like this. And let me go back to the 1x, and I can also increase or decrease the exposure value. Like if I decrease the exposure, the screen becomes like this, and if I increase the value, so it starts to blow out everything. So this is the kind of result you can get. And actually right now you can hear the sound of Vivo V20 SE. I'm not using any external mic. You can shoot 120 and 240 fps slow motion video with this device. 1080p slow-mo video is only limited to 120 fps, whereas for further slow-mo videos you can switch to 240 fps, but that only happens on 720p resolution. So guys, this was a camera review of Vivo V20 SE from my side. I think if I compare the rear and front camera, the front takes more numbers. The day images are reasonable, and even the images in the good light at night are fair enough. But the rear camera's performance in the pitch dark situation, even with the night mode, is not impressive. So this is it for today, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon, guys. See you in the next video. Allah Hafiz.